Last week on Scotty's Garage, I talked about buying this 3D printer and how much I liked it. But a whole bunch of you reached out to me and said, Scotty, we want to know more about 3D printing and what's involved. So this week on Scotty's Garage, we're going to talk about 3D printing, what is it, how to get started, and what the processes are to getting yourself a good 3D print. So here we are 1 week later and doing the video that I didn't think we would be doing, but we are doing this. I will start this video with a caveat that I have 10 days experience in 3D printing, and you're probably wondering, then why are we listening to you, Scotty? Why aren't we watching one of the 1,000 other YouTubers out there who are heavily involved in the 3D printing? And you're right. However, those people, male and female, will come at this from the perspective of making toys or cosplay items or figurines, where I'm going to come at this from the perspective of making car guy stuff. All right, so that's where the difference is. And a lot of you people asked for this video. You know, you asked, how do we get started in 3D printing? You know, you bought a machine, but you didn't tell us how it all worked. And you're right. So over the last 10 days, I've gone from making stuff like little benchy boats to screwing around and making stuff like that, to making nice tubs. Yes, that is a Milwaukee pack-out container tub made here in this printer. And or making stuff like this, which is a bearing block for a plasma table I am building. True story. So yeah, that is a very chunky piece of plastic, and I'll get into that in a sec. But yeah, I've come a long way in 10 days, I've got to say. So what is 3D printing? Well, 3D printing has many forms. What this is an FDM machine, so fused deposition modeling. And what it does is it takes a little thermoplastic filament that is 1.75 mil, which is kind of the standard for desktop machines like this. They do a larger filament for industrial machines, 2.85 mil, I believe, but you won't really see that outside of industrial machines. So I think 1.75 seems to be the standard. You'll see a lot of it around, and I think 3D printing is about to explode. Like it's been a thing that's you know, been the premise of geeks and stuff making stuff for the last 10 years, but I think it's about to hit mainstream and it's going to get very popular, and I think we'll see filament in like Woolworths and Coles soon. I think that's where it's going to go. So the other types of 3D printing, like you've got one called stereolithography, I think, where they use resin and they do layer by layer using UV light and stuff like that. Looks like an interesting thing. It's very highly detailed. It's great for making models and stuff like that. I don't know how it would go for car guy stuff, and it's a little bit more complicated and messy. So I don't know if it applies to us at all. And then you've got the SLS, I think, which is where they do like metal, sintered metal 3D printed, you know, where they use a laser to heat up little pieces of metal that it drops in place, you know, and build stuff out of metal. And that's the stuff the governments are really worried about, because they're worried that everyone's going to start printing guns at home and all that sort of thing. But yeah, this stuff, the desktop printer, generally you'll find it as, like I said, an FDM printer. And yes, resin, they do have desktop resin printers as well. But as I said, I don't know how they apply to us as car guys. So materials come in different strengths and weaknesses. This is what they call PLA. This is your basic filament. There are various levels of PLA as well. They have PLA plus, PLA matte. Every manufacturer has their own version of PLA. PLA stands for polylactic acid. It is a biodegradable. It is made out of renewable materials. All right, so corn seems to be a popular thing to make it out of. Yeah, I don't know. I don't recommend eating it though, but it is tough, and it has a low melting point, so it's easy to form. And once you have formed it, it will hold its shape quite well. So thermal expansion isn't really a problem with it. Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. And as I've said, I've made things like, these Milwaukee style storage bins. So I made 2 of these on the plate at once. It took 12 and a half hours. So that's one thing to think about. But used, like $5 worth of filament, something like that for 2 of them. So when you're thinking about that, yeah, to buy a couple of these from Milwaukee, I think it's over $20. So yeah, not too bad. There are other materials that are better for different things. So they have the next kind of level up is what they call PETG. I don't know what it stands for, but it is tougher and stronger. It is more hygroscopic. So high water absorption is a real problem in the 3D printing world. PLA doesn't seem to be much of a problem. Certainly I haven't had a problem here in the shed, and this shed has been wet. I have, I think, solved my dampness issue. However, I haven't had any problems with wet filament yet, although generally I take it straight out of the bag, whack it on the thing, and start using it. But still, there are spools that have been out for a whole week or more, and I haven't had any problems. However, PETG does suffer from hygroscopic problems, and some of the other ones are even worse, like ABS and ASA, and they're tougher materials that a lot of guys are using. I know Matty does a lot of ASA stuff for his ducts on his XL series cars and that sort of thing. So using that stuff, Matty uses a little heater thingy, like it's a dryer for the filament. So filament dryer that mounts to his printer, and he dries the filament as it's printing, so that way it doesn't get little bubbles and stuff in the print. It can really mess with your print, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, you do not want wet filament. But when you get it right, you get good stuff like this. So on something like this is pretty light. This is just like a bone benchy that I like the design of. I printed it out, and it has, I think, what they call a 15% infill. Now, infill is the material on the outside. You go for a smooth surface. On the inside, under the smooth surface, it will be less dense. So it'll have like cross hatching or something like that happening. So because otherwise you would be printing like a solid piece. Yes, you'll have all the gaps and stuff, but it doesn't need to be solid, for something like that. That is a pretty strong thing. I'm squeezing that with all my hand strength, and it's not breaking. So that is a lot stronger than it looks. This, if you threw it at someone and hit them in the head, you'd probably kill them. This has a 60% infill. It is really solid, really strong. Now, people might say, well, why don't you print it 100%? Make it fully solid. Well, there is problems with that. They reckon if you go full solid, it doesn't have any flexibility, so it will shatter very easily because, all the molecules are jammed up tight to each other, so it has no room to move. And so instead of moving, it'll just break. So, like I said, 60% infill on that. There is still some material I need to remove from in there, from where these holes are and stuff like that. So this will be, as I said, a bearing plate. There'll be 8 little roller bearings in there. It'll roll across a 50mm square beam and be part of a plasma table that I'm making at the moment. I've got a whole box full of stuff. I've just been working my way down through the print list. of these plans I bought from JD's Garage in the States. So look them up if you're looking to do this as well. But yeah, they make up a very good plan set, and we'll talk about that in a future episode where I'll go through the steps of making your own plasma table. But yeah, from a car guy's perspective, or just a garage guy perspective, this is next level, and this is awesome. Again, these are using plans that are preset, but you still got to do stuff with there. You don't just get a plan and you go into the printer and away you go. There are steps involved. But for a PLA block, I'm really impressed. Like, the detail on that thing is really good. I mean, you got some lettering there. I'm not sure why they've got the lettering. I'll have to read the instructions and what that's about. However, that is a good looking piece, and it's going to serve us well. So that's the starting point. So you buy a machine. This is a Elegoo Century Carbon. It was $629. If you were to buy one right now, and I bought it, they didn't give it to me. Although if they want to give me a bigger unit, hey, reach out. This is a great little starting point. There are a lot of different brands out there, and I've looked at a lot of videos over the last few years and watched a lot of stuff. Bamboo Labs is a really good name brand as well. So if you're looking to get into it and you were going, I want to buy something a little bit extra, Bamboo Labs. Matty's got one, he loves it. So, and they have basically multi-filament parts that you can print 4 different colors if you want at once. So that's a good thing for those. These don't have that option yet, but I believe it is coming. Once these get the multi-filament part, ASM I think it's called, once it gets that, I think these are going to be like really, really popular. But for the money, this is a great entry-level starting point, I feel. I'm not saying you should go buy one, do your own research. However, I have not had a single issue, and I'm printing in a shed where at night it gets down below 10 degrees. Temperature is important. With 3D printing, it's all about temperature. It's literally melting a, thermoplastic element, a filament, through a nozzle and precisely laying it in a layer and using a predetermined path to create a shape, to create whatever it is you want out the other end. So temperature is important. The nozzle temperatures, this one will do up to 300 degrees, I believe, the nozzle. But generally we're running between 190 and 210. Bed temperature is about 60 degrees, generally for this PLA stuff that we're doing. The chamber temperature, like today, I've been running some stuff and the chamber temperature was about 30 degrees Celsius inside the box. And that's with the vents closed up here, because it is still only a cool day. It's like 14, 15 degrees outside. So it's a nice day, but, it's still cool. At night, I keep the vents closed because, like I said, it gets so cold in here that the chamber temperatures are barely 20 degrees. And if it gets too cold, you won't get very good bed adhesion. So bed adhesion is pretty important, because if it doesn't stick to the bed, it's going to just make a massive mess and you're going to get a spaghetti monster inside your box. This is an enclosed printer. I like that because my garage has a lot of leaf litter that comes in through the top cap on the roof. I don't want that leaf litter inside my enclosure. I don't know how big a problem that is, but I don't want it to be a problem. So for me, the enclosed printer is the way to go. There are a lot of printers that are non-enclosed, and they're basically a frame with a print bed. A lot of this is what they call a Core XY style printer, and the head moves around. The bed moves up and down, but mainly the head moves around. On some of the other printers, the bed moves, the head and the bed move. Like the head will move up and down and the bed will move around as well. So they're more of the exposed style printers. So there's a lot there to take in. Like I said, I've had very good success with this. Over the last 10 days, it has been flawless, although I've joined several of the Centuri Carbon groups, and there are a lot of people having problems, mainly to do with their filament, in that they're not printing PLA, they're printing other more exotic filaments like your PETGs, like your ASAs, all that sort of stuff, ABSs. So with that stuff, temperature and water content are critical. It's got to be dry, and your print housing has to be hot. So I know a lot of people run them with blankets over them to keep that chamber temperature as hot as possible when they're printing ABS and stuff like that. And then you've got carbon fiber filaments and all that sort of stuff as well. So I haven't delved into that rabbit hole just yet, but I'm just sticking with PLA. You might say, well, if the other filaments are stronger, why is this printed out of PLA? That's because the guys who come up with the plans recommended it. They said just print it out of PLA. If PLA is good enough, then that's what I'll use. And I mean, the stuff I'm printing this out of is $10 a roll. However, it's not always $10 a roll. As I found out yesterday when I went online and tried to find some more, and most of the stuff was $20 a roll and more just for basic PLA. And I'm like, Jesus, this is going to get expensive real quick. However, I did jump on the JCar website and found that they had some just their last little bit of black. They actually had to ring me and say, I ordered 5 rolls, and they said, we have 4 rolls left. What do you want as your other color? So I got 4 rolls of black and a roll of gray. But yeah, just to get it at $10 a roll, I did it. But I think that's going to be the last $10 rolls I get for a while. All right. I think I've talked enough right there. Let's talk about the next part. Well, let's look at the next part, which is how do you go from an idea to in there? So I'm not going to talk about 3D design here. That could take up multiple videos just by itself. If you want to get started on 3D design, I suggest you go and find a program that will suit you. Now, last week I talked about Fusion 360 as being the industry standard. It is something that I'm going to try and get into learning more about. But a few people have sent me other options, that more free options that I want to explore. It's going to take my time to go through those and see what works for me. I need something that's precise, in that if I'm going to design car parts and all that sort of stuff, I want something that's designed that allows you to design right down to the millimeter, or the tenth of the millimeter, or more. You know, some of the programs I've been sent are a little bit more loosey-goosey than that, and yes, they're great at creating artistic shapes and that sort of thing, but you don't always get that precision that you want. So I want something that's precise. Fusion 360 is that, although this learning curve is very steep. So we're not going to talk about that. What we're going to talk about is more taking a file and putting it onto your printer. Where do you find the files? For starters, I like using a website called Printables. So we go Printables. Now I do have it saved up here anyway, but I like Printables because the website's nice and clean, easy to use. There is another website called Thingiverse. It's not quite as clean and neat, but it has a lot of files there as well. So, for example, my wife came to me the other day and said, I want a container that can hold my sewing ruler, which is this big thick ruler, and it's about yay long. And she wanted something that would sit in that and then hold her scissors and that sort of thing when she does the sewing. And she found this tub on Printables, and it's a Milwaukee pack-out tub. And I went, well, that's pretty cool. So she found that. I downloaded it, put it in the machine, printed it out for her in purple, and it looked amazing. And, you know, I liked it so much that I thought, you know what? I'm going to make a couple of those for myself. So I put some red in there and printed them out. I know that's more, looks orange, but yeah, it's supposedly ruby red, and that is PLA matte from Elegoo. So again, I like it. Came out really good, and I mean that's cost just over $5 for a pair of them, where they cost over $20 retail. So you want to find something like that. I'm not saying you need to print that, but I'm just saying this is the process. We want Milwaukee, and I'll tell you what, if you're into Milwaukee stuff, you're going to find, whoops, let's have it, type it out correctly. Milwaukee. All right, you're going to find a lot of Milwaukee stuff. There is so much stuff here. So we're going to have to be more specific because, like I said, there is so much. So we go Milwaukee, pack out, container. All right, so again, I'm not even finding that one at the moment. I'm trying to remember what she directed me to. Let's select this one just as an example. So we want our container. So you're going to have to come down here to files. All right, you want click file, and you're looking for an STL file. All right, so .stl is what you're looking for. Now this, like in printables, it gives you the option to slice these in like other slices. Slices are important. We'll get to that in a sec. But Prusa, Orca, Ultima, Cura, Bamboo, these are all fairly mainstream slicers. I'm going to use the Elegoo slicer because it came with a box and I'm getting used to it. But we download the program to the STL file, and we'll go and find that in our downloads. There we are, 4-inch bin. Click on it and it opens it straight away in Elegoo Slicer. All right, so what's a slicer? A slicer is the program that creates the layers that you need to create your object. You can't just take your STL file and drop it straight into your printer. It doesn't work that way. I'm sure sometime in the future it might get to that stage where the machine will slice it for you. We're not there at the moment. Right now, what we have to do is you take your STL file, drop it into a slicer, and it will create the layers that you need. So in this Elegoo slicer, like I said, it's pretty simple. I've got a couple of different presets I've already created at the moment. I'll go with a standard preset right there of the 0.4 nozzle. These are all important. You need to have, you know, what size nozzle you've got, all that sort of thing, as pretty standard. Generic PLA, well, let's say I'll put the Elegoo PLA in there at the moment. And there's our thing. Now, for whatever reason, this program doesn't allow me to drag it up and down. I don't know why. I can upsize it and downsize it. I don't know how to drag it up and down at the moment. But we can rotate it around. As you can see, it rotates quite easily. So we go up here with slice plate. Did it very quickly. And it tells us that it'll take 1 hour and 2 minutes to print this. And it'll use 45 grams of filament. So 45 grams of filament and 1 hour to print if we want to print this item. Now, if we use my other preset, which is a little bit more heavy duty, let's go to that. So this, I use a thicker build, so to speak, just to make it a little bit more solid. We'll slice that, 1 hour and 5, and uses a bit more. So it has a heavier infill, so it uses 53 grams of filament and takes 1 hour and 5, and it will end up with a solider shape. And then from there, you can send it straight to the printer if you're connected, or you export the G-code. So we export the G-code to, well, what I've been doing is exporting it to a USB stick. So we would export the G-code and click our stick, All right, the stick's not in there at the moment, or is it? Actually, just got to reset my stick. There it is. There's our stick. 3D printing. And I'll just save that in there. Now it's saved. We can take that stick out, put it in the front of the machine and print it out. I'm not going to do that at the moment because that's not the container that I really wanted to use. But anyway, so that's that process. I'll show you another one here. We've got another container. Again, Milwaukee style. Whoops. Now I've accidentally grabbed it and I'm moving it around the plate. I can undo that. So edit, undo. It'll take it back to where it was. We can rotate it around, but you can see it's on its side at the moment. And if we were to slice it right there, it will try and print on the side. So we could say slice plate and it's going to come up with a warning. You see the warning down there? Object square has floating cantilever. So basically it's saying it has overhang and it's going to print badly because you need supports. So we'll come back here. Now we could support it the way it is, but I think that would probably be a bad idea. So let's flip it on its back and then go to our support area and go enable support. What type? I'll go with a tree. I like the tree style supports. They work really well. And yeah, I think that will work best. So we could slice the plate. It's done that. It's going to take 2 hours and 9 minutes to do and use up 55 grams for the model, but 62 grams all up. So it's going to use 7 grams for the supports. Now, can we remove this stuff and show the supports? No. Wanted to show you the tree supports, but we can show you that in the printing of the red container. So when we printed the red container, we used tree supports and it basically held up this edge, supported the edge so we could print that lip. Otherwise, I mean, where's it going to print? It's going to fall all the way to the ground. So it needs that support under there to support the ledge so it can print up there. And these are things you got to think about. If it's going to print on its side or on its edge, you need to support that area to print this area. These are important things you need to think about. Removing the supports. I've bought these little pliers and stuff from J-Car. There's a set of 5 that come in all different shapes and sizes. And they're very handy for removing the support material, especially on something heavy duty. On the trees were very easy to remove, but when you print the big solid block material like I used for this relay cover, yeah, that takes a lot of work, so you got to use the pliers on that. Right, so from there, we've created our G code. So this is the thing. So you've got to create a G code file from the STL file. So we've created our G code, we put it on a stick, we've put the stick in the machine, and we come over to the machine. From here, we go through the menu, go local is everything that's loaded on the machine. Now this is all specific for this machine. Every other machine will be different. As I said, I like this one. USB drive, 3D printing. Say I'll go plasma table. And there's a whole bunch of stuff here I've already printed for the plasma table. Is there anything there that I have not printed? Let's say this. I don't think I've printed this yet. So it takes that G code file. We've already selected it. I hit print. and away it's going to go. So right now it's heating the nozzle and it's heating the bed. The chamber temperature will come up as well, but it's not heating the chamber. The chamber temperature is going to be basically a function of the bed heating and the nozzle heating the material, and that latent material heat will create heat in the chamber. As long as the chamber doesn't get too hot, because you don't want PLA to get too hot because it will then disform. But, you know, for what I need and the fact that it's quite cool, if we're in the, you know, mid-20s to 30 degrees, we're in a good spot. If it got hotter than that, then I would open these vents at the back, up the top here. Now I've printed this whole thing, again, from a design of printables, and that allows us to open the vents up here so we can let hot air out, or we can keep it in if we like, and there's vents on all sides of it. So right now we're printing part of our plasma table build. It's cleaning the nozzle. I'll open the door here so you can see. So right now it's going to go and it's going to sit there, and then it will lay a line on this corner just to clean the nozzle. So once it gets the nozzle temperature up, it's got the bed temperature up to the right temperature at the moment. It's at 60 degrees. Sorry, can't see that. So right now the temperature of the bed is at 61 degrees, and the nozzle temperature is coming up to 210. All right, now it's just squirting a little line. And now it's starting the print. Because this is black on black, it's going to be a little bit hard to see. And as you can see, it gets quite fast. So that print's going to take 14 minutes all up. It's got 12 minutes to go. It's going to do its thing. We'll come back to it in a sec. I'm just going to go get a drink and we'll come back and the print will be done. Right, so the print has just finished. So where do we go now? Now, last week I showed myself pulling a print straight off the bed. Not recommended, but it's just the way, you know, just show that you could. We'll just confirm that that print is finished. Now, lift the bed plate out. Bed plates are magnetized to the main bed. You hear it separate slightly. Now, it is preferred that you don't actually touch the plate. Like, the edges are fine. You do not want to put oils from your skins on the center of the plate. It can affect adhesion. So, you know, I try not to touch the center of the plate if I can. So there's our little block. Now, as I said, 14 minutes to create that. Okay, 14 minutes to print it from a pre-created design. The bed is pretty much clean except for this layer on the corner. I don't know if you can see that because it's black on black. I'm just going to grab that with a thumbnail, pick it off, and we'll put that in our little scrap bin that I have here on the table, because you'll need a scrap bin because you do create a lot of little scrap. And now we'll just lay this into the printer, seat it into the back and let it adhere back to the bed. And we're pretty much ready to go again if we have another print ready. I think we've printed all of these parts now. Let me just step through and have a look. USB drive, 3D printing, plasma table. All right, so I've done them, that, and that. So I've printed all those parts. I still have some parts to go because I need to, there's a couple parts that are dependent on the size of the bar that you're using. And I don't have the bar yet, so I don't want to print those parts until I actually get the steel that I need. But as you can see, that has turned out pretty damn good. Now, we can tap this and, you know, thread it and that sort of thing. It won't be super strong. It'll be strong enough to hold things together. Depends on how much force you want to put on it. Or then you can buy little brass inserts, which I actually have some up there on the toolbox. Let me grab them.
A few moments later.
I bought these the other day off Amazon. They're little brass inserts. Basically, you heat them up with a soldering iron and like you put a soldering tip in the center of the insert and then just press it in, making sure to get it directly straight. There's a trick to that. I'll show you that when we have to do it. But basically, yeah, you can use these little brass inserts to put threads inside holes, or you can thread the material if you want, depending on the strength that you need. But yeah, I'll put that in my little box with all my other 3D printed parts for my plasma table. Couple of things people don't talk about. How much filament. I mean, that was stuff all. I've been using the end of this filament for a long time now. I've printed out a whole bunch of pieces. I thought I was almost out of filament, and it is. It's almost out of filament, but I just keep printing stuff off it. If it's small pieces, you can print, you know, a lot of things. It's those big items that will chew up the filament, and time. Time is the other thing that people don't talk about, and that is, for example, the 2 tubs, 12.5 hours. That was a big print. It used up almost the whole deck, so the whole print bed, and 12.5 hours. So basically I started it at, say, when I got home, 7 o'clock at night, and it was ready by the time I got up in the morning and had my shower and had a breakfast, went out and grabbed it off the bed at 12:30 the next morning. So yeah, prints take a while. The bigger the print, the more involved it is, the longer it's going to take. That bearing block, let me just look that up. I'll tell you exactly how long that bearing block, actually it's not on this USB stick, it's on the other stick. Let me pull this out. Just grab that stick out of the other computer. All right, we'll change USB sticks over, making sure I get it orientated right, because I always put them in wrong, or try to. Okay, USB drive. There we are, 3D printing. Okay, plasma tail folders. All right, so that bearing block was 6 hours and 41 minutes for that bearing block. So it takes a while. So for the big prints, I tend to do them overnight or start them before I leave for work and let it go. Some people have said, oh, it's not recommended for you to print stuff while you're not there supervising. Well, I'm not going to stand around and watch the thing the entire time. You can monitor the prints on the local network. This machine does not have full internet access. It will access your local Wi-Fi. So for my home Wi-Fi, it talks to the Wi-Fi. If I've got my phone on me and I want to, well, I do have my phone on me. So if I wish to see how the print's going from, say, the lounge room, so let's bring that up. All right, so here's the app. Basically, I've got my network at the top. I'm not going to show you that, just in case you can hack it. So you just put in your IP address. So when you set up your machine, you can look up, you can go to the settings, and it will, you look up your network and see what your IP address. You put your IP address straight into the phone. It will connect straight to the printer. And I've got the light on, yes. So if I click it right now, it will show me that it is idle and there is nothing on the bed. Does it show my hand? Where are you? There we go. There's my hand and my fingies. All right, take that out. There is a slight delay. There we go. So phone and printer are on the same network, but it won't, like if I'm at work, I can't look up the prints from work. That's not standard. This printer, I believe a lot of more expensive printers connect straight to the internet and you can look them up and you can watch it from work or whatever. I don't have that functionality with this one. But yeah, do I like it? I love it. I think it's great. I think this is going to change things a lot in terms of what I can do here in the shed. The fact that I'm going to make my own plasma table is a massive thing for me as well. So it means I'll be able to cut things out in steel here in the workshop or print it out in plastic if I need to. So that's going to be a big step up for Scotty's garage. Yeah, I think for $629, I think it's a great box. It does everything that I've wanted to do so far. I haven't, like I said, I haven't got into the full design thing yet. It is a step I need to take and need to put some time into just learning, Fusion 360 or some other program to design my own parts. But once I get to that stage, yeah, it's going to be very cool. So this video has turned out a little bit longer than I thought. But I think I've given you a pretty in-depth look at what's involved. We've talked about materials, we've talked about the time, we've talked about buying the printer. Setting it up was just a matter of following the instructions, and it was simple. I've already kitted it out with a few things like this little screen surround and stuff. I talked about that last episode. What I didn't have last episode was this little riser thing that, again, I found the design on Printables, and allows me to keep the glass cover up on top and maintain that heat in the bed, not the bed, but in the chamber. And as you can see, it certainly doesn't hurt it because, yeah, I'm getting amazing prints out of it, even though it is a very cold day. So we're going to see. I'm not going to do any more 3D printing videos for a while. At least I don't think so, unless you have more questions. But I think we've delved into this enough to show you what's involved. It can't live here. I can't leave it here on the table in the middle of the workshop. It's really inconvenient at the moment. So I've gone and bought myself a little shelf thing from Bunnings. It has to be something I'm hoping this shelf or this little bench thing that I've bought is going to be stable enough because as you saw, I showed some footage there, it shakes the entire table. So it does. Like, you would not want one of these in your living room. Like, it doesn't make a massive racket, but makes enough of a racket that you would not want one in your living room of your house, I like it here in the shed, and that I can just come out, set a print, walk back to the house, check it every now and again with the phone. Once it's done, come out, swap it over, send another print, and away we go. So that's great. Not everyone's going to be able to do that, but you want somewhere that's clean and relatively clean. Dry, relatively dry. But yeah, and somewhere where you can set it up and it's not going to be in the road, but you can access it because you need to be able to access it to put spools on, or, eventually we'll have to clean up the poop bucket out the back, but that will be a long time coming, I think, because it does not create a lot of waste. There is a little bit of waste that you get from just general material, you know, that you have to peel off either the bed or just, you know, off your projects, cutting off, say, brims and stuff from the bottom. So sometimes it'll print out a little brim layer just to help the adhesion to the bed. Yeah, these are little things you got to trim off. But yeah, you can make some cool stuff with this. And I am going to make some cool stuff with this. And if you feel like this is something you'd like to get involved with, I highly recommend these printers. But like I said, do your own research. I don't want anyone to buy one and go, oh, Scotty, this printer sucks. Do your own research. But this thing's been flawless for me. So that's it for this episode of Scotty's Garage. Join us next week when I'm going to finish off the wiring loom, now that I can clean off the table and finish off this wiring loom, and we can get that into the AU and get the AU fired up with its new ECU. But you'll see that on a future episode of Scotty's Garage.